Today, I want to talk about a relatively new theory of learning called growth mindset. And it's not one of those theories where we talk about our preferred learning styles or highlight this or that kind of stuff. This is more really a way of how do you approach the world? How do you approach your own learning? So this is more of a personal type of learning than it is than a learning strategy, right? And the subtitle of this talk is "You Are Not as Dumb as You Think You Are." And many of the elements that we're going to talk about here are really things that are going to make sense, things that you've probably been told before. But this is all going to be rooted in science, just the way we like it. So this is a very quick biology lesson on how our brain works. And here we have a neuron, and neurons are what we use to transmit information. Information comes on over here, grabbed by the dendrites, flows down the axons and comes out the axon terminals. And then these little axons then talk with their next dendrites, right? So when our neurons talk with each other, we get information coming in this way, out through the axon terminals and to the next neuron from its dendrites, and then out that way and so on and so forth. Now, I'm sure you've been told this before. We only have the brain cells that we have, and we can't get more brain cells. It doesn't quite work like that. In fact, if you do things like drink too much one day or get some major head trauma and you start to lose neurons, you can't get those neurons back. Right? Well, that's sort of true. Right? We kind of have a certain set of neurons, and we kind of have those neurons for life, right? But what isn't true about that statement is that even though we can't get more neurons, what we can do is we can make better connections, right? So let me explain. See these dendrites here? Notice it's not just one single dendrite. It's almost like it's like a root network where we have all these branches coming out, right? Same with the axons. We have a whole bunch of branches. So what we can do is, even though we can't grow more neurons, we can grow more branches, right? So let's say, and it's hard to, imagine this neuron right here. We have this neuron with this axon, and then this dendrite with these axons. Right now, these two sets are kind of living off by themselves, right? But over time, through effort, what can happen is that this dendrite and then this axon can reach out, and then they can make a connection. So all of a sudden, you can have a path going this way, but you can also have a path going this way. And then you can start to increase the network that you draw from, right? In that case, your brain can grow in the connections that it can make. And we call this phenomenon neuroplasticity, right? The ability for your brain to change. So let's watch this little video on neuroplasticity. There's the link, by the way, if you'd like to watch it again. Or you can just search for neuroplasticity on YouTube. And I think it'll be the first hit. So let's watch this video, and then let's revisit this.
Not so long ago, many scientists believed that the brain did not change after childhood, that it was hardwired and fixed by the time we became adults. But recent advances in only the last decade now tell us that this is simply not true. The brain can and does change throughout our lives. It is adaptable, like plastic. Hence, neuroscientists call this neuroplasticity. How does neuroplasticity work? If you think of your brain as a dynamic, connected power grid, there are billions of pathways or roads lighting up every time you think, feel, or do something. Some of these roads are well-travelled. These are our habits, our established ways of thinking, feeling, and doing. Every time we think in a certain way, practice a particular task, or feel a specific emotion, we strengthen this road. It becomes easier for our brains to travel this pathway. Say we think about something differently, learn a new task, or choose a different emotion. We start carving out a new road. If we keep travelling that road, our brains begin to use this pathway more, and this new way of thinking, feeling, or doing becomes second nature. The old pathway gets used less and weakens. This process of rewiring your brain by forming new connections and weakening old ones is neuroplasticity in action. The good news is that we all have the ability to learn and change by rewiring our brains. If you have ever changed a bad habit or thought about something differently, you have carved a new pathway in your brain and experienced neuroplasticity firsthand. With repeated and directed attention towards your desired change, you can rewire your brain.
All right, so a couple of the things that are very important in this is that the knowledge that your brain can and does change. Right, so your brain isn't just kind of stuck the way it is forever. It does change, right? But this happens through repeated and directed attention towards that change. So it's not just going to change because, right? It doesn't quite work like that. You have to want the change to happen, right? And so this leads to what we call a growth mindset. And with growth mindset, it's this pervading belief that intelligence can be developed, as opposed to the opposite, which is a fixed mindset, which is the belief that you are who you are. You are born a certain way, right? And many of us, of course, are going to say, yeah, intelligence can be developed. I believe that I can get smarter, right? But think of phrases like this. I'm just not a math person. I'm just not good at that. Right? That's a fixed mindset, because that's the belief that you can't get better at math. It's who you are. I don't like my science classes. Science is always difficult for me. So therefore, science, I can't take more than one science class. Right? Again, a fixed mindset. This idea that I'm just not good at something, therefore you don't get better through effort. Right? It's just kind of who you are, and you're always going to stagnate. Right? So that's a very important thing with the whole growth versus fixed mindset. And if you have a growth mindset, those with a true growth mindset will have this great desire to learn. They'll understand that I can get better, I can learn things through effort, as opposed to fixed mindset. The pervading belief there is this desire to want to look smart, or on the flip side, not dumb, right? And that's really what it is. Trying to have others, show others that you have this, you are a certain person, I am a smart person. So then all your actions are designed such that you want to kind of maintain this image of being a smart person. Now, these are the polar opposites. No one is 100% growth mindset. No one is 100% fixed mindset, right? And so there's this thing called a mindset test. Very simple. You can Google this mindset test. I believe it's the first hit on Google. And you just answer some basic questions on what you believe, and it'll kind of give you your scale of where your mindset is at in terms of the growth versus fixed mindset continuum. And then the interesting thing about this is also it's context specific, right? So, in an academic setting, for example, I believe I can learn anything, and then someone puts up a challenge to me, shows me a new piece of technology, some sort of new skill to learn, and I'm going to try to learn that thing, right? But you put me at home, and my wife says, why don't you cook dinner tonight? I'm like, you know what? I'm just not very good at cooking. Your cooking is so much better than mine. I just can't do this whole cooking thing. Every time I cook, it kind of sucks. So why don't you handle the cooking again, right? And that's more of a fixed mindset, mostly because of laziness, I can learn to cook, I am a firm believer in the growth mindset. I know that I can get better at cooking, but it's just so much easier to defer to my wife, who's so much better at it than I am, right? But was she always better? No, something that she learned and she developed over time, right? But we are going to focus on the growth versus fixed mindset in the academic setting, right? Because that's, of course, what we are concerned about here. Now, having growth versus fixed mindsets gets you to approach or deal with the world in a certain way, right? So some very common phrases that one may have when you have a growth versus fixed mindset is that with a growth mindset, you always want to say, I can learn anything I want to. Whereas with a fixed mindset, you say, I'm either good at it or not, right? And the common example, of course, is that math person. I'm just not good at math. Therefore, I'm not going to learn it, right? I'm failing math because I'm bad at it. Oh, crap, I didn't do so well on my first quiz. But that's because I'm bad at math, right? And that leads to the second one. Through frustration, a growth mindset person will persevere. They'll understand that through hard work, through hard effort, it's going to be hard. You have to persevere because eventually you'll get it. Eventually it'll be easier. Whereas with a fixed mindset, once things get frustrating, you say to yourself, you know what? This is frustrating. It's kind of what I expected. I'm just not good at this. Why bother going on, right? Things like failure, right? With growth mindset, every failure is an opportunity to get better, right? It's one step closer to success. And I think Thomas Edison once said that the invention of the light bulb was iteration number 200 and something. I totally forget exactly how many efforts he made to build the light bulb. But for him, he says, really, the light bulb was 200 and something failures and then the one success, right? But all those failures led him to succeed, right? Whereas those with a fixed mindset will say, well, failure means that I'm no good. It reinforces my belief that I am no good, right? I am dumb. Growth mindset is all about effort praise. You worked hard, right? And it's the process that's going to get you to where you need to. Whereas with a fixed mindset, you say, well, I got this because I'm smart. Oh, I didn't get this because I'm stupid, right? And it's this whole, you are who you are. Oh, so-and-so has always been good at math. They're just good at it. Well, don't forget the number of times that they've worked at things, right? And then a good example of this is looking at athletes. We always say, wow, this guy's he's a naturally good jump shooter. Man, he can make those three-pointers, right? Stephen Curry rains those threes like crazy, right? But what you don't see is the many, many hours that he spent at the gym, the many hours that he went working on his craft, right? So he wasn't always a good three-point shooter. He had to work at it, right? It's through effort. Another good one here, and this is, I think, sometimes many of us hear and say, is that if you succeed, I'm inspired, right? Your success means that I can succeed too, because we are not that much different. We differ only in experiences, and we only differ in the time put in, right? But eventually, I can succeed too. Whereas someone with a fixed mindset says stuff like, if you succeed, I feel threatened. Your success means that you are smart, I am dumb, right? And again, we have, some of you might persevere through frustration, but you like to be told that you're smart, or you feel threatened when your colleague does better than you on a test, right? So we have kind of a little bit from each side, a little bit from both sides, right? And the idea here is that overall, we'd like to shift more to a growth mindset. Understand that some of these feelings that we have are normal, and try to change our thinking through concerted effort, repeated and directed attention, and develop a more strong growth mindset. Now, nothing says things better than a meme, right? So let's go look at some memes. Now, the funny thing is, I went and Googled growth mindset memes, and then all of a sudden all these cat pictures came up. I have no idea why cats and growth mindset are correlated, right? But you know what? I just ran with it. So let's look at some memes here, right? Sometimes being wrong is the only way we can learn, right? Clearly this cat has learned that whatever it is that they did to end up in this position was not the right thing to do, right? But that means this cat will learn how not to do this anymore, and then get better at it, right? Because it's not about being easy, right? It's about being worth it. And I tell my son this all the time. Life isn't easy and shouldn't be easy. In fact, if it's easy, you're probably doing it wrong, or you have not yet been challenged, right? Because life is hard, and it's effort that what's eventually going to be worth it. You persevere, and eventually it'll be worth it. Another person's success should inspire you. Right? Look at this high jumping cat, and all these cats sitting on the ground. Are they thinking, wow, that cat can jump so high? I wish I could do that. No way. These cats are looking at it and saying, wow, look how high that cat can jump. You know what? I'm going to try and do it too, right? Another person should inspire you to do well. This one's a fun one. Sometimes you win, sometimes you learn, right? That's a fun spin on the whole winning and losing thing, because really the pessimist here would say sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, right? But losing is an opportunity to learn, right? And this, again, applies very nicely in sports, and I do this a lot when I play sports. You win, you try to think about what happened, but when you lose, you know what? You lost. Why did you lose? What are some of the things you can do better to make sure that losing doesn't happen again? Because of course it sucks, but remember these guys, they never said it would be easy, right? Only worth it. Don't compare yourself to others, right? This cat is looking at these two ducks and then saying, hey, I don't have no flappy wings. I don't quack. I can't swim so well, right? But don't compare yourself. You're a cat. You're a duck. That's who you are, right? Really, the only person you can affect change on is yourself, right? You cannot affect anyone else. Geniuses, like I said with Stephen Curry, like I said like it's true with all other geniuses, including myself, right? Geniuses have to work hard too. I know some of you think that I just show up like the way I am, right? But no, I put in a lot of time, right? Making this 17-slide presentation. It took me, days to make this thing. It was a lot of tweaking, a lot of modifying. And I'm going to revisit this slide very soon and talk about the growth mindset element of this presentation here, right? But it's hard work, right? You're not just born naturally to do something. It's effort that gets put in there. And then our one non-cat meme here is this guy, right? Yeah, go ahead and develop a growth mindset. That would be great, right? But it's not so simple. How does one develop a growth mindset, right? We always say this. I just told you right now, hey, science says that you want to improve, you put some directed effort at affecting change in yourself, and it's going to happen. But really, is that how it happens, right? And this is a very good example of maybe how things don't quite happen, right? And I always hesitate to use this analogy, right? Because not so many of you youngsters might not quite remember this, right? But there's the little engine that could. Long story short, is a little train that's chugging along, and all these little circus people kept jumping on, saying, "Hey, can you take us to the circus?" He has to go up all these little hills and down these hills, and if the weight gets larger and larger, he's just a little train, but he keeps saying, "I think I can, I think I can, I think I can," to try to go and get these where they need to get to. And spoiler alert, he could. So he got there and was able to do it, right? But is it that simple just to say, today I am going to adopt the growth mindset. I'm going to get smarter today. It doesn't quite work like that. There is a process, right? And like we said with the neuroplasticity, a repeated and directed attention towards the change. So this leads me to the culmination of the exercise or the presentation, right? This idea of metacognitive reflection. I know, long word, a lot of mumbo jumbo, right? But basically what this is thinking about thinking, right? That's what metacognition means, right? So we're looking at the touchy-feely side of it, right? So really think about your feelings, think about what you're thinking, think about your experiences. How does it make you feel, right? And when you talk about reflection, you're talking about not what you see in the mirror, right? But analogous to that, you are talking about your own thoughts, your own feelings, your own character, and you really want to be judgmental here. You really want to look at yourself honestly, right? And this type of thinking really helps turn life experiences into really meaningful knowledge, right? So when you failed something, how did that make you feel? When you succeeded, how did that make you feel? And of course, the very simple answers are great, not so good, right? But really, what were the processes that you did? What were your thought process? How do you think about stuff? How did you prepare for a quiz that you bombed on? How did you prepare for a quiz that you did well on? Right? And sometimes the answers are as simple as, I didn't study, I studied hard. Like, what does studying hard mean? Right? How did you study? What was different from the studying hard for the quiz that you failed versus studying hard for the quiz that you passed or you aced, right? So it's really all touchy-feely kind of stuff, right? A couple more memes. Again, cats are coming up everywhere. Learning without reflection is a waste. Reflection without learning is dangerous, right? So you don't want to learn in a vacuum, learn in a void. You want to learn and then always think about learning. And that's something that I do all the time. I'm always thinking about my learning, always thinking about experiences. And then we're going to end our last meme with Genius. He's a physicist, right? So we'll excuse him for that, right? But he says, education is not the learning of the facts, but the training of the mind to think, right? And that's really what it is that we're trying to do here. And of course, I want you to learn all about microbiology and the wonders of the microbes, right? But that's not the ultimate goal here, right? Because you can look up the facts always, right? I don't want to produce someone who can just spit out facts like crazy. I want to produce someone who can think, right? Training your mind to think, so then that when you're put into new situations, new environments, you can learn it, right? Now, growth mindset is kind of this era of the hipster, right? Hippies raised these young kids to be all like, "Explore your feelings, man," right? And so now we have all these kids that are believing that they're amazing and awesome and express themselves, right? And these people are now moving out in the workforce. So that's where this whole growth mindset, touchy-feely stuff is coming from, right? And this is now my final crux, this whole reflective journal, right? So this is one great way to start to really adopt this whole growth mindset. So first, of course, you have to believe in growth mindset. Believe that through effort and through repeated and directed attention, you're going to be able to grow your brain, right? And this works through reflection, constantly thinking about it. And a very good way to do this is sit down and write. Write a story or an experience at the time that you failed something. What did you do that led to that failure? How did that make you feel? What are some of those affective things, right? And then also write about those times when you succeeded something. And what were those things that led to success? How did that happen? And sometimes, the easy answers are always like, I don't know, I just tried harder, or I don't know, I practiced, I guess, right? But really think about it, right? And through those little nuggets of wisdom come, right? And the more you do this, the easier it becomes. And this is something I do all the time, right? So when when I go through this slide presentation, I'm constantly changing the verbiage. As I go through it once and I present it to a class, I say to myself, how did that go? How did they receive this message? Some of these words that I put up there, were they confusing? Were they not effective? Maybe I can change something else, right? Hey, maybe some memes would be great to kind of spice this kind of stuff up, right? So all of a sudden these memes get introduced. So it's this constant changing, constant reflection on what I do. And everything I do every single day is a constant reflection. So write it if you can, right? But sometimes we don't want to do this whole reflective writing journal kind of stuff, right? So, I find the best times for reflection are like your doo-doo time, because you got like 10, 15 minutes to sit there with nothing to do except read shampoo labels, right? So you might as well sit there and think about your day. Think about how, not the what's, but the whys and the hows, right? The feeling kind of stuff. You're stuck in traffic. If you're those townies driving out there all the time, 30 to 45 minutes, 1 hour in traffic, right? What else you got to do? Think about your day, right? Think about this whole reflection. Think about yourself, right? And you constantly do this, and then over time, your brain will grow and can't contain themselves anymore, right? So that's all I have to say today about growth mindset. We're going to revisit some of these elements a little bit later this semester, I think. I hope. We'll see. But that's it for now. If you have any questions, post them on the board.